From the outside, there was nothing remarkable about him. He lived in a quiet neighborhood. He held a stable job. He attended school events, community gatherings, family celebrations. He waved to neighbors. He volunteered when asked. He followed routines with almost comforting consistency. If you were asked to describe him, you'd probably use the same words everyone else did. Reliable, responsible, normal. And that's what made the truth so difficult to accept when it finally emerged. Because this story isn't about a stranger hiding in the shadows. It's about a man hiding in plain sight, inside a role people trust without question. A husband, a father, a provider. For years, no one questioned who he was. And by the time the cracks appeared, the damage was already irreversible. This is a real-life, inspired story drawn from multiple investigations where the most trusted person in the room turned out to be the most dangerous. This is the story of a family man with a dark secret. Every weekday morning followed the same script. Alarm, coffee, shower, departure. His schedule rarely changed. And when it did, he had an explanation ready. Reasonable, specific, believable. Consistency builds trust. Coworkers described him as disciplined. Supervisors praised his reliability. Neighbors noticed how predictable his movements were. Predictability disarmed suspicion. At home, he was present, but not intrusive. He didn't shout. He didn't intimidate. He didn't draw attention to himself. He maintained control quietly. Family photos captured moments that looked genuine. Smiles that didn't feel forced. Vacations that seemed ordinary. Nothing about the home suggested instability. And that's the first uncomfortable truth investigators learn too late in cases like this. Danger doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes it comes with routines. Inside the home, rules existed, but they were subtle. Bedtimes, schedules, expectations. Nothing extreme enough to raise alarms. No physical abuse. No visible fear. But control doesn't need force to be effective. It only needs structure. Decisions were framed as what makes sense. Disagreements were quietly redirected. Boundaries were enforced through disappointment rather than anger. This created an environment where questioning felt unnecessary and eventually uncomfortable. Family members adjusted without realizing it. And when people later asked, "Why didn't anyone notice?" the answer was simple. Because nothing looked wrong. The earliest red flags didn't come from the family. They came from outside interactions. A co-worker noticed an inconsistency in a timeline. A neighbor recalled a moment that felt slightly off, but not enough to mention. A casual acquaintance remembered an interaction that made them uneasy, but dismissed it. These moments were isolated, disconnected, harmless on their own. And that's how they survived unnoticed. Because human memory doesn't prioritize discomfort unless it has context. At the time, there was none. What investigators later discovered was that his life didn't unravel, it split. There was the life everyone saw. And then there were hours no one accounted for. Not because he disappeared, but because no one tracked him closely. His phone records were sparse but deliberate. His online presence minimal. His movements justified by work, errands, obligations. Everything had a reason, and every reason sounded reasonable. This wasn't impulsive behavior. It was maintained, and that maintenance required planning. The case didn't begin with suspicion toward him. It began with an incident that seemed unrelated. Something minor, something external. But investigators noticed a contradiction. A time that didn't line up. A detail that didn't fit. When timelines were reviewed, his name appeared, not as a suspect, but as a constant. Always nearby, always present, always explainable. Until one explanation fell apart. And once one piece broke, everything else had to be re-examined. This is the point where cases like this change tone. Because investigators stop asking what happened and start asking how someone avoided notice for so long. Digital records were rechecked, movements reconstructed, patterns mapped. What they found wasn't chaos. It was structure, and structure implies intent. Statements he gave were accurate, but selective, truthful, but incomplete. And that's where trained investigators pause. Because innocence doesn't require editing. Perhaps the most devastating part of these cases is that the family remains unaware while suspicion builds. Investigators move carefully. They know what discovery will do. Because when the truth comes from someone this close, it doesn't just shock, it destroys foundations. And all the while, the man at the center continues his routines. Still dependable, still calm, still trusted, because the mask doesn't crack until it's challenged directly. When questioned, he didn't panic. He cooperated. He clarified. He smiled. He behaved exactly how innocent people are expected to behave. But experienced investigators listen for something else. They listen for over-control, answers that arrive too quickly, details offered before they're requested, corrections that don't matter. And when evidence was presented, not accusations, just facts, his demeanor shifted, not visibly, but internally. And that shift was enough. What investigators uncovered wasn't what the public expected. There was no emotional breakdown, no sudden confession. The truth revealed a pattern: deliberate actions, calculated decisions, long-term concealment. This wasn't someone who lost control. This was someone who believed control would protect him forever. And that belief had worked for years. When the truth became public, the reaction followed a familiar pattern: shock, denial, disbelief. People searched their memories for warning signs. Most found none, because the most disturbing reality is this: some people aren't hiding rage. They're hiding intention. In the end, the question isn't how he fooled everyone. It's how easily trust fills the gaps when nothing demands scrutiny. Because this story isn't rare. It's repeated in different places, with different names, over and over again. And somewhere right now, someone is living a life that looks ordinary enough to be ignored, until it isn't. In the next chapter, we'll explore how people like this build lives designed not to be questioned, and why the people closest to them are often the last to see the truth.